Hello, everyone, and I hope everyone is doing well today. And I'm going to be making a fairly quick video here, talking about today's setup, and then sort of briefly discussing tomorrow's. Um, but yeah, just gonna make a quick video here. Nothing too serious. More of just a damaging wind sort of threat for the next few days here. So nothing too serious, nothing too significant, but worst case scenario, we could definitely see an isolated 70-mile per hour wind gust. So that is definitely strong enough to cause some issues. Um, but we'll see how that plays out throughout this afternoon. But yeah, this is our risk area for today, and it's a very large risk area. We have a marginal all the way from Portland, Maine, down to New Mexico and Wyoming, um, Texas too. So we even got a little slight there for Springfield and Boston. But yeah, this risk goes all the way down through here to Ohio Valley, across the Tennessee Valley, the Mid-South, and through the plains and the southern and central high plains, where we have those enhanced risks in place. Our tornado risk fairly low, non-zero risk in southern Ohio Valley here, northern Tennessee Valley, but nothing crazy. Your main risk is going to be out in the high plains or damaging wind here. Um, Again, this is going to be the main risk today. A very large region of this 15% risk. Um, and then our hail threat, of course, out in the high plains is going to be your best bet. But some small hail possible across the Ohio Valley as well. However, they do seem large hailstones really greater than quarter inch, very unlikely. So again, here's that risk area. Um, the slight risk for the Ohio Valley, Evansville, Louisville, Lexington, parts of the Coalfields, Bowling Green, Kentucky, Nashville, Jackson, Tennessee. Um, that's the area under that slight risk, and the marginals, Cincinnati, Columbus, Charleston, West Virginia. Um, Mainly it for the even parts of St. Louis, especially southern St. Louis in that marginal, but that's about it for the Ohio Valley, um, city-wise. So this is what's sort of causing our active setup here, and we have a train of low pressures essentially from New Mexico all the way up to Maine here. Um, sort of stationary, stalled boundary here, and it's just been creating stormy, rainy weather really down from New Mexico all the way up through the Northeast. Um, so heavy rain, flash flooding is possible in the red hatched areas here, including the Ohio Valley here. And then that yellow striped hatch is that severe weather risk. So very definitely a fairly busy day today. But yeah, these sort of stalled weak low pressures along this boundary here are sort of causing this active weather. So here's our current surface analysis here, and we're gonna kind of just pay attention to this sort of region here when we're looking at our surface analysis. So we see some upper 70s across southern Missouri, Kentucky through Tennessee, mid Tennessee. Yeah, mid 70s really through much of all of really Kentucky, maybe except for the coal fields, and then some low 70s across southern Indiana. Dew point's also mainly in the 70s, a little higher near Memphis here. So let me kind of sort of compare that to the models here. We do. All right, so this is the models are H triple R. This is what it would be showing here, and Okay, we have our mid 70s across Kentucky. We're kind of warmer temperatures in Memphis through central Tennessee. So yeah, mid 70s really. Doing fairly well there. Let's check our dew points. Again, they were mostly in the 70s, really across um, all of Kentucky except for really the western or eastern parts here in the coal fields. But much of Kentucky was in the low 70s, even southern Indiana, and then parts of mid Tennessee as well, and western Tennessee. So yeah, that looks fairly well. Looks very good, fairly good here. We have our sort of cutoff here. Um, Central Kentucky through Central Tennessee. The 70s could go up a little bit more, but we do see a 70 there in Cincinnati. Again, doing very good with comparison to our surface observations. So, yeah, additionally we have this sort of complex of rain showers and even some heavier rain about Illinois. This could play a role in if storms can really develop on this northern part of the risk here across central Kentucky. Um, and then this is our satellite. We can see this sort of um, rain showers and even some maybe possible thunderstorms. Um, we put this in motion here. But yeah, these are moving off to the east. But for the most part, across central Kentucky through much of Tennessee, we have fairly clear skies, some scattered clouds about, especially across Kentucky. But fairly clear skies. Again, gonna help to sort of help strengthen this sort of MCS here um, across Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Missouri. This will be sort of the key player into the today's setup across the southern Kentucky, Tennessee, northern Mississippi, and Alabama as well. But yeah, this will continue to move off east as well, and this will be the sort of threat for this region later today. We could also see some, and I'll talk about this in a second, but we can see some sort of convection across Kentucky, um, especially if these clouds don't get in the way too much of destabilizing the atmosphere. But especially across southern Kentucky here, you could see some convection possible pop up in the afternoon along that boundary, but we'll have to sort of keep an eye on that. So in today's and yesterday's setup, and today's and for tomorrow's for the most part, we have been experiencing something what we call zonal flow, and we have these sort of west to east winds here, very very sort of straight parallel with each other here. This is often a midsummer sort of setup here. This is summer-like setup for sure. And this is sort of what has caused this active setup, especially across the plains here in the mid-south with these Boeing segments, MCSs, and whatnot. This is definitely one of the key players into that. But yeah, no really big noticeable trough or ridge or much of anything. We just have this zonal flow across much of the country, especially the central and eastern portions. And we can sort of see that this zonal flow throughout the day here, and not much change at all. Not much change at all. So I additionally want to go over our 0 to 6 kilometer volt shear here. Um, So this is by about, the mid-afternoon, and we can see across Kentucky, 30 knot wind, bulk shear, 40 knots, 40 to 50 knot across parts of the mid-south here. But these bulk shear winds are definitely sufficient enough for some clustering um, of cells that would pop up and forming sort of maybe small bow segments and whatnot. But this is definitely a clustering sort of event here. We do have some stronger sort of winds here, but this could be more likely associated with that MCS moving through the region around this time. But out ahead of it, especially across Kentucky, we do have decent bulk shear, sort of support those clustering of cells. Here's our surface-based cape. This is about 10 a.m. today, and we can see the bulk of our cape is going to be setting up across western Kentucky, Tennessee, most of Mississippi here, Arkansas, where values of 2,500 joules per kilogram possible. Out central Kentucky, central Tennessee, southern Indiana, we can see 1,500 joules, still sufficient enough. But as this sort of moves um, eastward here, and by about 2 or 3 o'clock, we can see around 2,000 joules per kilogram, really possible much of Kentucky, central Kentucky, westward, central Tennessee westward, and then much of Tennessee, really, with some 3,000 joules per kilogram pockets. So our surface-based cape is definitely high enough. Look at our mixed layer cape real quick, and I'm sort of just again around 2 or 3 o'clock, and yeah, 2,000 joules per kilogram. Much of western Kentucky, much of western central Tennessee, central Kentucky around 1,500 joules per kilogram. Great, pretty good mixed layer cape in the area. So mix that with we have great thermodynamics really, mixing that with our sort of zonal flow. Definitely, um, additionally with that boundary, um, adding that lift, we're going to have some stormy conditions for sure. And this is sort of what the radar could look like and over throughout the day. And we can see that MCS across um, Missouri, Arkansas, and Oklahoma. Actually, I can should have showed this too. But this is what we're sort of dealing with here. It is weakening here. We already see some yeah, these are definitely thunderstorms across southern Illinois. Yeah, actually have additional convection developing southern Kentucky, um, even northern Tennessee. But the MCS here moving its way sort of southeast, definitely weakening on the northern end, southern end still holding some good strength. Um, but as this moves east, we'll be watching for a further development and re-strengthening within the line. And like I said, we have this sort of convection popping up across Kentucky and Tennessee. But again, HRR is doing a fairly good job with the handle of this. To move on by closer to lunchtime, 1 o'clock here. Again, it's sort of scattered convection across much of the Ohio Valley, isolated, probably better wordage here. But nothing crazy. If I take a sort of sounding southern Kentucky here, or southwestern Kentucky here, um, we can see our really good cape here, our fat cape. Precipitable water values are off the charts, nearing 2 inches, 1.9 in this case, but nearing 2 inches. Um, will definitely keep the hail threat sort of on the lower end. Lapse rates aren't great. With the thermodynamics we have, definitely um, not much of a issue, but after sunset, I think most of these storms could start dying out fairly quickly. We do have a nice 3 cape here. Downdraft cape is also decently high. Our shear values are again aren't great, but we can see that sort of zonal flow with surface all the way up here. Not much change, not much turn in our winds. But again, nothing too serious speed wise to worry about. Photograph, you can sort of see. We do. I mean, we don't really have much. Yeah, I mean, we do have maybe some slight sort of turning, um, especially in our first sort of 3 kilometers, but um, nothing at all, or really crazy at all. So, as we move on throughout sort of the afternoon here, we can see sort of this clustering take place across Tennessee, Western Kentucky here, Southern Tennessee as well. Another sort of sounding, I'll take sort of northern part of Tennessee here. Again, we have the nice cape here, nice 3 cape. See sort of that zonal flow. I mean, again, sort of the same setup. These storms are going to have some gusty winds and some possible small hail with it, up to an inch probably. Um, Quarter size is probably the most sizable hail I can see, but even that I'd say could be unlikely. So, but we can see it definitely is possible in the strongest storm that does take advantage of those thermodynamics. So we'll see. As we move on throughout the night, though, 8 or 9 o'clock here, those clusterings sort of dip south into much of Tennessee and much of Tennessee or Kentucky, excuse me, and then southern Ohio getting into the mix as well. So again, that's sort of the setup here. Um, Especially Western Kentucky, Western Tennessee, for the central parts, that's going to be your best chances for unsettled weather. More isolated stuff towards Cincinnati, Columbus, Pittsburgh, and Charleston, West Virginia. More isolated um, stuff this evening. And then tomorrow's setup, sort of the same idea here, zonal flow, maybe a bit further south, but most of the same areas under the gun again. Further east, especially across the Carolinas, which I will be touching on tomorrow. But again, another sort of MCS should be underway tomorrow morning through Arkansas, Missouri, Oklahoma, and that should be moving east tomorrow morning through the Memphis area, Little Rock, Jackson area by 7, 9 a.m. Eastern time. Um, but again, current observations, including radar observations, are going to be key in sort of severe weather events like this, where they're so, especially MCSs, where they're really hard to sort of pin down, and sometimes they don't even really happen. So, but yeah, this is sort of that risk for tomorrow. Again, damaging winds seem to be the greatest threat here. 20th threat again, non-zero, but not very worried. And then hail threat going to be on that southern mode, um, including sort of all the way to really Midland, Texas. But yeah, hail threat not really huge as well. So I will be back tomorrow with another sort of probably another quicker video. Again, nothing sort of significant in terms of severe weather, but definitely more widespread. And your occasional 70-mile-per-hour wind gust is definitely likely today and throughout tomorrow. So until then, everyone have a good day and take care.